What's good, everybody? We are back with another Call of Duty mobile video. Today we got something a little bit different for you guys. So for those of you who are subscribed to the channel, which you should be if you haven't already, last night we ended up unlocking the final gun in Call of Duty mobile, which means that we can finally do something that I've been waiting to do for quite a while, and that is a tier list for every single gun in Call of Duty mobile. So as you guys can see, I made a page on tiermaker.com. You guys can actually do this yourselves, and if you would like for me to react to your tiers, you can comment those into my reply on Twitter, or into my tweet on Twitter. I tweeted about it earlier today, twitter.com/BobbyBucketsYT. Link for that will be in the description as well. But basically what we're going to be doing is ranking every gun in Call of Duty Mobile. So you can see right here we got the A class, the B class, C class, D class, and then shotguns. Because I don't think anybody would disagree that shotguns are without a doubt weaker than every single other gun in the game. So if you guys do enjoy the video, make sure you drop a like down below and subscribe to the squad if you guys are new. I'm actually not going to be streaming for the next week because I get married this Saturday, so we're going to be out of town for the honeymoon. But if you guys would like to get me a wedding gift, you can hit the subscribe button down below because this is what I do for a living, and any amount of support that you guys can give helps toward that. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and hop into the video. So we're actually going to start from the bottom and go up. So right here, we got the XPR April Fool's Day. In my opinion, semi-auto snipers are one of the worst things in the game, simply because it's nearly impossible. I think it's impossible to get one-tap. You might be able to one-tap them in the head, but anything that requires 2 shots, shooting as slow as it does, not going to be a viable option. So the XPR 50 is going to go into our D class. UL 736. I used to be very much not a fan of this gun. Now I'm only kind of not a fan. I actually tried it out earlier today. Even though it doesn't have very high damage output, it has a pretty good rate of fire for an LMG. And it also has pretty good stability as well. So there are some LMGs that have really high recoil. This is actually very stable from long ranges. And with a recon sight, it can actually be pretty good. Next up, we got the Type 25. In my opinion, and there will be people that disagree with this, the Type 25 is still the best weapon in the game. I know there's a nerf to it that increase the amount of bloom for hip fire and decrease the close range damage, but even with all the tests that I did in our video that we did the other day, you guys can check that out if you want to. In my opinion, it is still the best, especially for rank play. It's not my preferred option for pub stomping because there's another weapon that I would prefer. So I would say my top 2 kind of go hand in hand, but definitely gonna have it up there in the A class for sure. Then obviously Striker goes in the shotguns because shotguns are doo-doo. S36, this is going to be a tough one. So there's a couple different ways that you could categorize guns depending on what your objective is when you're playing Call of Duty Mobile. If you're just a casual player, not really interested in working up, I would put the S36 in the A class because you can absolutely shred, but because of its low mobility and... I mean, honestly, the mobility is really the only thing. The low mobility and also the amount of time it takes to scope in. Simply because of those 2 factors, I'm going to put the S36 in the B class. It is the best LMG in the game, in my opinion. But just because of the mobility and the amount of time it takes to scope in, I've got to put it down in the B class. Next up, we got the RPD. I'm going to put that in our C class as well. Really good for one of the earlier on guns in the game. It's very stable, has pretty high damage output, has a little bit more recoil than the UL 736, and a little lower rate of fire, but higher damage, I believe, as far as that goes. I'm not doing exact numbers comparisons, but just the feel that I tend to get from this, I would rank the UL 736 slightly ahead of it, and then the RPD right after that. Next up, we got the PDW 57. So I know this is probably going to upset some people because I have a lot of people tell me that this is actually their favorite gun in the game. I'm personally not a huge fan of the PDW, and I can understand the people that really, really like the gun because it actually used to be my favorite gun. It used to be the only gun that I used. But one thing, I actually tested it out earlier just to give it another try. Whenever you first start firing the PDW, it has this weird hop to the side that throws off your accuracy after the first shot. And if you're going up against somebody else that's hitting their shots, it's going to make it really tough to win the battle. That coupled with the fact that per shot, the PDW has very damage. Now, I know it has the highest, or at least one of the highest damage statistics in the game, but that is because of the amount of damage that it does due to its rate of fire, because it has one of the fastest rates of fire. I wouldn't say that it's a viable option for rank play just because you can't really use it at range, and it's not strong enough in close range to beat an MSMC, which is coming up next, which I'm going to put in the B tier. Now, there is a caveat that I'm going to give for the MSMC. This is one of the best guns in the game if you are a pro player with amazing mobility and amazing aim. However, if you are not that, the MSMC is not going to be a good option because it has, in my opinion, the highest recoil in the game. It bounces all over the place, but for most pro players, they're able to get right on top of other players. And if you have a really good reaction time coupled with really good aim, the MSMC could be one of the best guns in the game. So for pro players, I would put it in the A tier, but since this video is probably going to reach more casual players than it will pro players, we've got it in the B tier right now. Next, we got the M4. Probably... I'm going to put it in the C class, but it's barely in the C class for me. It is a very stable gun, a very reliable gun, but it has very low damage output and a very low rate of fire for an assault rifle. Obviously, you don't expect it to be a top tier weapon because you get it at level 1. So it's definitely a decent option, but definitely not above the C tier for me, and probably closer to the lower end of it if I had to give my honest opinion. Next up, we got the M4 LNG. I'm now realizing that I'm probably going to have a lot of C-tier guns just because there's a lot of guns that, in my opinion, just kind of fall into the mediocre range. For one reason or another, I would put it above the M4 because it has good damage output. But for some reason, the M4 LMG has this weird circular recoil pattern that makes it tough to hit long-range shots. And because of that, I'm almost tempted to put it down into the D tier, but because most beginner players aren't all that worried about laser point precision, it can be a decent option, but not something that I would pick personally. Next up, we got the M21 Ebr. This gun is essentially the same as the XPR, maybe a slight damage difference, slight rate of fire difference. But for the most part, those two guns are the same and just not a viable option because it is a semi-auto sniper that requires more than one shot in order to take somebody out, and simply because of that, I can't put it above the D tier. Next up, we got the M16 Evil Clown. So I've actually talked a lot in my videos about burst fire weapons and my thoughts on them. I will throw the M16 ahead of both of these because I think it is a better option. And if you have really good accuracy and can manage to hit headshots, then you can one burst somebody, but it does require headshots in order to get a one burst. And if you're not hitting that, it's very difficult to trace people for the same reason that it's difficult to trace people with the Chick-On, which I made a video about the other day. Basically, that space in between the bursts makes it very difficult to trace people because it changes the recoil. And so in order to be able to accurately trace somebody, you need a consistent recoil pattern, which you just aren't able to get with a burst weapon like the Chick-On or like the M16. It is toward the top of the D tier, but I'm going to categorize it down in the D tier simply because of that. Next up, we got the LK24. I'm going to rank that slightly ahead of the M4 simply because it has very high damage output. It has high damage output, but a very low rate of fire. It's definitely another decent option, but given other guns that you're able to unlock around its level, it's not terribly useful for most people. So a nice gun to try out, but not terribly viable, especially for rank play due to its low rate of fire. Next, we got the HS2126 shotgun. I would probably say this is my favorite shotgun, so we're going to put it toward the front of the shotgun section. But at the same time, it's still a shotgun, not viable to me. Next up, we got the HS0405. In my opinion, this is the worst shotgun in the game because it has the lowest rate of fire. And with the Buy 15, that's the only one that shoots as slow as the HS0405 does. But you can... Or wait, no, it doesn't shoot as slow, but they do similar damages, but the HS0405 has a lot slower time in between shots. And if you can't get shots close together, like, essentially, number one, if you miss, you're dead. Number two, even if you hit your shots, there's probably somebody following close behind. HS0405, in my opinion, is the worst gun in the game. It's not something you will ever see me using by choice. Next up, we got the HG40. This is another one that I'm going to put up toward the top of the D tier, but a D tier gun nonetheless. This isn't very viable because it has an insanely low rate of fire given the fact that it's an SMG. So you have high mobility, pretty quick scope in time, but crazy low rate of fire for an SMG. It doesn't even, it feels more like an assault rifle than an SMG because it has a very predictable recoil pattern and not all that much damage drop off, but at the same time, very low rate of fire. So I'm going to actually put that below our C class simply because of those reasons. Next up, we got the DLQ-33. This is the most overpowered sniper in the game, especially if you can hit your shots. For quick scopers, this gun is insane. I mean, basically, this is one of the best guns in any mode of the game, whether you're pub stomping or if you are playing ranked. If you're playing, like, at the competitive levels of Call of Duty Mobile, you will see people using this gun all over the place. I love this gun. I have loved learning how to quickscope with it, and hopefully we'll have a tips and tricks video on best settings for it as well coming at you guys in the future. But that's definitely going to go in the A tier for me. Like I was saying before, in my opinion, the Chicom is one of the worst weapons in the game. I would almost rather use I think I would rather use an M21 or an XPR over the Chicom because it takes, I think the time to kill if you hit every single shot is like almost 4 seconds, which is crazy slow. And the stats on the gun are actually skewed because when putting the stats together, they didn't take into account the time in between shots where you have to wait for the burst to finish. So, in my opinion, the Chicom is almost unusable. I would never choose that weapon. Next up, we got the Buy 15. That's probably my second favorite shotgun. I do like the HS2126 better simply because you have a better chance at one-shotting people because you got those 4 burst shots, and it's also a lot quicker to reload, making it a lot more viable. But at the end of the day, they're all shotguns, and you're never going to see me using any of them by choice unless it's for like a troll video. Next up, we got the BK57. So this is actually a gun that I didn't like before. For some reason, the first time I tried it out, I just wasn't a huge fan of the gun. And then one of my viewers had me give it a try the other day, and I actually loved it. I was almost tempted to put it in the A tier, but it doesn't have that punch that you need to make it up into the A tier like the Type 25 and some of the other guns that we're going to have up there. So because of that, I couldn't put it up into the A tier, but it's definitely a really reliable gun, one that I would highly recommend whenever you guys unlock it, just getting a feel for it and trying it out because there are some people that actually like this better than the Type 25 or the AK-117. Next up, we got the ASM-10. This one kind of is like on the in-between for me. I'm probably going to put it in the C tier because it's another one of those weapons that has a semi-inconsistent recoil pattern. Any weapon that has a significant amount of horizontal recoil, it's just going to be hard for me to put it up into one of the top tiers. And this does have that a little bit. It reminds me of the AK-47, but the AK-47's recoil is only vertical, which is what you're going to want to be looking for in a gun because it's a lot easier to control vertical recoil than it is to control horizontal recoil because it's a lot more predictable. That's why I'm going to put it at the top of the C tier, but the C tier nonetheless. Next up, we got the Arctic 50. So I have conflicting emotions about the Arctic 50. I hate it because people that use the Arctic 50 usually also use a recon sight and they just spam it from the back of a map, annoy the crap out of you. They're usually not skilled players and they're just spamming until they hit a shot because it has such a high rate of fire. At the same time, it probably is a viable option. It has a much lower chance of hitting a one-shot than the DLQ-33, but still a decently high chance. I would say closer to like 60 to 70%. I haven't used the gun a ton myself. We're going to put it in the B tier simply because it's a somewhat viable option, not one that I'm going to choose to use because it's a lot less satisfying. Because in my opinion, it's a lot more satisfying to hit a one-tap, which you're going to get more often than not with the DLQ-33. But I will put it up into the B tier. Next up, we got the AKS-74U. So this is another one of those that I'm really struggling on whether I should put it into A or B. I'm going to put it into A tier for a number of reasons. Number one, it's viable in ranked play for a really long time. It has a really good rate of fire, really good stability, really good damage, really good mobility. It's just good in all the major aspects of the game. Another reason is you actually unlock this gun whenever you're level 8, I believe. So this is a gun that you can use basically from level 8 to level 150 and have a viable SMG that you can use all the way through in ranked play. And it also dominates in pubs because obviously any gun that's good in ranked play is also going to be good for pub stomping. For that reason, I am going to put the AKS-74U up into our A tier, and then next up we got our AK-47. That's going to go in our B tier as well. Probably slightly above the Arctic 50 for me. So this is a gun that's not going to be viable for ranked play for the most part because it has low mobility. and because it has a pretty slow draw, meaning if it comes down to reaction time, who's drawing their gun first, somebody else with a faster drawing gun like the Msmc, BK57, AKS-74, U-Type 25 is going to beat you in a gunfight. But it has very high damage for an assault rifle. It has pretty low recoil, and the recoil that it has is only vertical, so it's very, very controllable. If you put a recon sight on it, it almost feels like an LMG with higher mobility. So because of that, I have the AK-47 up in the B tier. And then lastly, we've got the AK-117. In my opinion, this is the best gun for pub stopping because it has better range than the Type 25 does. And so because of that, you can kind of sit in the back and laser people all at the same time. If you're up close with somebody, you can still easily wreck them because it has really good damage, really good mobility, really good rate of fire. There's literally nothing bad about this gun. There's just a slight damage advantage that the Type 25 has that you can really only understand whenever you compare the two when you're playing in ranked games, and that's why I've got to keep the Type 25 up above the AK-117. But you also unlock the AK-117 at a lot earlier level. You unlock it at level 60 or whenever you hit pro tier. And also, there's just pros and cons to everyone. And so, obviously, people are going to have different rankings for these depending on what they play more. I do play a lot of pubs, but at the same time, when it comes down to what I need when I'm playing ranked, the Type 25 is going to be the gun that I'm going to go with. So, that is going to be it for the video. Hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure you drop a like down below. Check out the link in the description as well to make your own tier, and make sure to send them to me on Twitter at BobbyBucketsYT. But that's going to be it for the video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below and subscribe to the squad if you guys are new, and I'll see you guys next time.